Now in his ninth season in pro football, running back Derrick Henry is showing absolutely no signs of slowing down. Ever since he heard his name called back in the 2016 NFL Draft, Henry has been one of the most impressive physical backs the league has ever seen, combining size and speed in the most dramatic way possible. The result is a highlight reel for the ages. However, as dominant as Derrick Henry is as a pro, he was once overlooked by almost every team in the league, going 45th overall in the 2016 draft. In this video, I am going to take a look at each and every offensive player taken before him, what happened throughout their careers, and where they are now. I wonder how many teams would be viewed differently had they drafted King Henry. First though, let's give Derrick Henry some love and clarify exactly what 31 NFL teams missed out on. Just as recently as Week 4 of the 2024 season, he absolutely demolished the Buffalo Bills, racking up 199 yards on the ground, helping his new team, the Baltimore Ravens, to a 35-10 Sunday Night Football victory. Henry was just a yard short of his 7th 200-yard game, which would have broken an NFL record currently shared with O.J. Simpson and Adrian Peterson. After a quieter first two seasons in the league in which he shared carries with DeMarco Murray, Henry had his first 1,000-yard season in 2018 and has never looked back since. In 2019, he led the league with 1,540 rushing yards, being named a Pro Bowler for the first time, and the following year, he became only the 8th ever man to rush for 2,000 yards in a season, picking up the Offensive Player of the Year award for his efforts. Henry carried the Titans team on his back through some very lean years, and he'll surely be inducted into the Hall of Fame whenever he hangs his cleats up. So let's find out what NFL teams opted over for that career. The first overall pick of the 2016 draft was, as usual, a quarterback, with the LA Rams trading up to pick Jared Goff out of the University of California. Goff entered the league with plenty of draft hype, and after a rough first season, he began to show why he'd gone first overall. Goff's best season in LA came in 2018 when he threw for 4,688 yards and had a 101.1 passer rating, leading the Rams to Super Bowl 53. However, Goff struggled in that game, putting up just 3 points, and questions were raised about his long-term future in LA. After 2 decent but not great years, he was traded to Detroit in 2021 as a make-weight in the Matthew Stafford trade, and had to watch as Matt Stafford won LA the Super Bowl in his very first season there. Overall though, both teams did end up winning this trade, and Goff has now undergone a career resurgence in the Motor City, transforming the team and making last year's NFC Championship game. Goff is now one of the league's very best paid quarterbacks on his new team, and looks well placed to be contending for a ring this year. However, the second overall pick in this draft is not faring as well. Despite going to a Division II school, Carson Wentz attracted huge attention with 2 excellent seasons out of North Dakota State, leading to the Eagles trading up to secure his services. And during his second season, this was looking like an inspired pick, with the 11-2 Eagles and Wentz playing MVP level football. However, he suffered an ACL injury and was honestly never quite the same. The Eagles won the Super Bowl without him, and despite picking up a bumper contract in 2019, he never repaid the team's faith in him. Wentz was traded to Indianapolis in 2021 after a terrible season, and he's now on his 4th team in 4 years as a backup in Kansas City. At this point, his NFL career is hanging on by a thread, not quite what the Eagles had in mind back in 2016. At pick number 4, the Cowboys selected a running back who definitely outshone Derrick Henry in their first seasons in the league together. Ezekiel Elliott was a rookie phenomenon in 2016, only missing out on Rookie of the Year to his Dallas teammate, Dak Prescott. And while he never quite reached those heights again, Elliott remained an elite running back for several seasons after, with over 7,000 yards across his first 6 seasons at AT&T Stadium. However, in recent years, his production has declined, and in 2022, he was released by the Cowboys, spending a lackluster year in New England before returning to the Cowboys for the 2024 season. But despite his recent decline, Elliott still has an impressive career, nearly breaking 9,000 career rushing yards, definitely a good pick from Jerry Jones. The next offensive player was Ronnie Stanley at number 6 for the Ravens out of Notre Dame, the first lineman in this draft. Stanley is still at Baltimore to this day, and has played a big part in the team being one of the NFL's best for much of the last 8 years. His best year came in 2019 when he was drafted first team All-Pro and blocked for NFL MVP Lamar Jackson, being a critical part in helping the league's best rushing offense hit new heights. Since then, he's had some major injury issues, including missing almost the entire 2021 season, but he's currently back on that O-line as the Ravens look to win a 3rd title in franchise history. Another successful early pick in this draft. Before the Titans took Henry, they used their first round pick on Jack Conklin, an offensive tackle out of Michigan State. Conklin was instantly a key part of the team, being named first-team All-Pro in his rookie year, as the Titans had their first winning season in 5 years. Conklin would play 4 years in Tennessee, continuing to perform well when healthy, including back in 2019 when, blocking for Henry, he and the Titans got to the AFC Championship game, falling only to the eventual champion Chiefs. However, Conklin left for the Browns in free agency and has continued to impress, being named an All-Pro again in 2020. Sadly, his career has been plagued with injuries recently, but it remains to be seen if Conklin can ever return and recreate the form that made him so impressive early on. Laremy Tunsil was drafted 13th overall and is the unfortunate owner of one of the most dramatic stories of draft weekend. Unfortunately, as although he was one of the top picks of the draft, he did fall to 13th overall after a video was released of him smoking some stuff that he shouldn't have smoked, which was posted on the day of the draft itself. In 3 years at Miami, he was consistently impressive, but he was ultimately traded to Houston in 2019, in a deal that worked out better for the Texans. Tunsil is a 4-time Pro Bowler and recently signed a $75 million 3-year extension as the team looked to break into the NFL's elite bracket. Overall, though, the Dolphins did make a good call drafting Tunsil, but ultimately a poor one in letting him go to Houston before he ever reached his peak. Here at number 15, we got the first true bust of this draft. The Cleveland Browns draft history obviously includes more high-profile misses than Corey Coleman, but there's no denying that they also messed up on this one too. Coleman was highly rated out of Baylor, winning the Fred Blittenkoff Award back in 2015. This was obviously a terrible Browns team, going 1-31 over his 2 seasons there, but Coleman didn't make things any better with just 718 yards across 2 seasons. After this, Coleman bounced around various practice squads before ultimately falling to the USFL by 2023. Not a good pick. A much more successful pick at 16 was Taylor Decker, who has spent much of his full pro career as a Detroit Lion. Decker has suffered a bright spot on some very poor Lions teams, but now in his 9th year as a pro, he is well placed to finally help the team go to do some real business, having made the NFC Championship game last year. Decker has been a key player for the team for years and now earns $20 million a year blocking for Jared Goff in this high-powered Lions offense and is showing no signs of slowing down as every down player, another hit, and a strong first round. Another hit on the O-line, Ryan Kelly was drafted 18th overall by the Indianapolis Colts. Like Tunsil, Kelly is also a 4-time Pro Bowler and has been part of the team in Indy ever since playing in every game in his rookie year. Despite some injury issues, Kelly has still managed 114 career games as a Colt and has now blocked for 11 different quarterbacks in his time at Lucas Oil Stadium. Yet another good pick from the O-line in this one. At number 21, we have another disappointing wide receiver, Will Fuller of the Houston Texans. Fuller was an All-American at Notre Dame and was the fastest receiver at that year's combine, but his first 4 seasons in Houston saw him struggle with injuries and struggle to make a big impact. However, in 2020 season was looking to be a breakout year with 879 yards in 11 games before a 6-game suspension for performance-enhancing drugs that ended that year prematurely. At the end of the year, Fuller joined the Dolphins and played just 2 games before another injury, this time a broken thumb. Fuller was released at the end of the year and never played in the league again, not fulfilling his promise out of college. Even more disappointing than Fuller, however, was Josh Doctson, drafted 22nd overall by the Washington Redskins at the time that year. Doctson was also an All-American at TCU, but his rookie season was cut short by an Achilles injury, which saw him play just 2 games. Following this, Doctson did feature in both 2017 and 2018 for Washington, but never really recovered from that injury, barely breaking 500 yards both years before being released in 2019. And after appearing in a few practice squads, he was out of the league by good for 2021. One final bust receiver in this draft was Laquan Treadwell, who went 23rd overall to the Vikings. Treadwell hoped to be the next big thing in Minnesota, but his first season saw him pick up just 1 reception in 9 games. His next 2 seasons were marginally better, but his time in Minnesota saw him get just 701 yards across 4 seasons as he never adapted to pro football. After brief stints for the Falcons, Jaguars, Seahawks, and Ravens, he was last seen on the Colts practice squad. It's fair to say his hopes of being an NFL star never materialized at all. After those wide receiver busts, we get a true quarterback bust at pick number 26. The Denver Broncos reached hard for this one, looking to find the successor for Peyton Manning, who had retired just that February. As is often the case, Denver was looking for a young star quarterback that wasn't there in the first round, and it showed on the field. Far from being the next Peyton Manning, Paxton Lynch failed to unseat even Brock Osweiler and Case Keenum in Denver, not looking NFL ready at all in his first 4 career starts. Lynch never started again after his second season and was most recently playing for the San Antonio Brahmas of the XFL, not quite what the Broncos had in mind in 2016. Next up is the first miss at O-line of the entire draft, Joshua Garnett of the 49ers. However, this one was just unlucky more than anything, with Garnett suffering repeated injuries after his rookie season, which derailed his career more than it truly got going. Garnett suffered injuries to his knee, thumb, and toe in San Francisco, which caused him to only play 25 career games. In 2020, after just 4 years being drafted, he announced his retirement, never really making that big impact many had hoped. With the final pick of the first round, the Seahawks went for tackle Germain Ifedi out of Texas A&M. Ifedi wasn't a bust in Seattle, but he wasn't a start either, and the team released him at the end of his rookie deal. After spells on the Bears and Falcons, Ifedi is currently still just about it in the league as a backup on the Cleveland Browns, another one of the disappointing category. Next up is a man still in the league, tight end Hunter Henry, drafted out of Arkansas. Henry has never been a superstar, but he's carved out a solid career for himself both as a Charger on his second team, the New England Patriots, as well. Henry's 38 career touchdowns are 4 more than any of the wide receivers who went before him, and he looks set to add to that total, having signed a 3-year extension in New England this year. Finally, as the last offensive player taken before Derrick Henry, we have Sterling Shepard, selected 40th overall by the New York Giants. Shepard was a mainstay in New York, spending 8 seasons there and having some success. His best year came in 2018 when he had 872 yards on the year despite playing on one of the very poor Giants teams. Shepard finally left the Giants at the end of the 2023 season, having compiled a respectable 4,000 yards for the franchise. But just 5 picks later, they could, of course, had Derrick Henry, as could have any of these teams. Instead, he stayed on the board until pick number 45, and Titans fans would have been grateful for that pick ever since. So which of these teams do you think regrets not taking him the most, and which of these guys was the biggest bust? Let us know in the comments.